top of the table.
Hello and welcome to yet another episode of Top of the Table. And today, on Top of the Table, we have one very, very interesting subject, which is people pleasers. Sometimes you feel that you are just a good person, but maybe there is a possibility that you are just a people pleaser. Now, if I talk about my own example, and the reason why we decided to go ahead with a subject like this is because I personally realized at a very, very later stage in my life that I am a people pleaser as well. So there was this person in my life, and she was one of those people who would always push me to do things even when I didn't want to do them. And I always used to be very, very resentful, and I always used to resent the fact that she is pushing me to do things which I possibly don't want to do. But I realized the reason why I'm doing that is not because she is a certain way, but because possibly I am giving her those signs. And the fact that somewhere I personally am a people pleaser and I am feeling obligated, maybe, which is why I want to please her. Now we'll delve into the deeper details of this with Jaswandi Sahasrabuddhe. So welcome, Jaswandi. I am sure that you'll be very, very enthused and interested to talk about this subject.
Hey, hi, Sheetal and everybody. Yes, you rightly said. I'm very interested, and I would say, rather than interested, I have always read a lot about this topic, not just about being a people pleaser, but being what we call as being the favorite in the group. And I really like reading about this because, at times we don't realize what we are doing. As you rightly said, you were not realizing how what you were until you actually sat down and thought, oh, yeah, I might be a people pleaser too. So, yes, thank you for bringing this interesting topic today.
So, honestly, Jaswandi, even I didn't realize that I'm a people pleaser till and until I, came across a lot of videos. And one of the videos was by Rinku Soni, who's a social entrepreneur. And she spoke about her own personal experience. And it was so, so similar to mine. And that is how I realized. Otherwise, I was just thinking that possibly I'm just obligated to this person. She has done this for me, or she was my first boss, or, she was this and she was that. And possibly that was the reason why I just wanted to be very, very nice to her, not saying no to her, putting my own needs and my own plans aside. But I realized much, much later that it was actually all of this was a problem with me and not with her. It was basically me trying to please her for whatever xyz reason. Do you think that people pleasing, from what I understand, it kind of kept me away from who I truly was? I wasn't true to myself. Do you think that it keeps you away from happiness?
Yes, Sheetal, I would say I completely agree to what you said, that it certainly restricts you from who you are. Or I would say, me, rather than anything else, people pleasers, spend most of their time in worrying about what if this person rejects me, or what if this person does not like what I'm doing. So generally, they aim to make others happy. As you said, you were not thinking about who you are or what you want. You were actually wanting just to be, as I said, approved of or popular in the group, just because you thought that's the way out. So as you rightly said, yes, people, when you start pleasing people, you tend to go away from being happy, or being what you call as ingrained into self love.
And just one the, somewhere I had this misconception about me when it came to all such instances, right? And this is just a one off instance that I am narrating. But, there were many other instances as well. And I always used to picture myself as this person who is kind. Not that I wasn't kind to other people, but the thing was that, I think that possibly there is always this confusion about whether you are actually a kind person or a people pleaser. Do you think that's true?
Yes, I completely agree to you, Sheetal, because when we talk about kindness, okay, kindness is like when we talk about you have a bigger heart, and when you look at people who like to please people, they generally sacrifice their things to make the other person happy or other person feel good, right? So people pleasing is more than just being kind hearted or big hearted. So when people pleasers keep doing it, it becomes their lifestyle. To be very honest, it's become very compulsive. You don't realize that yes, this is happening, but you actually keep on doing it. So for example, if I say I am kind, is when I genuinely want to do something good for someone. On the other hand, if I'm a people pleaser, I want to do something good for someone, but with an intention of making that person feel that, oh, she's doing it for me. So there is a very subtle difference between kindness and being a people pleaser. But yes, this question still exists. How do we differentiate between these two traits? Because these are so overlapping. It becomes all difficult whether this person actually is kind hearted, or like, is she trying to please me? So yes, there's a difference, but it is a very thin line, I would say.
So, would it be right to say, Jaswanti, that when you're talking about acts of kindness, they are basically acts where there is zero expectation from the other
Mhm.
person, not even the expectation of how the other person may feel. Whereas when it comes to people pleasing, you have an expectation of the other person feeling good about you, the other person feeling maybe grateful for whatever you are doing and showcasing it somewhere so that you feel good about yourself. Is that true?
Yeah, so it is basically, I'll tell you, Sheetal, it's more about manipulation. You're trying to manipulate the other person of how he should think about you. He or she should think about you. On the other hand, kindness is like, you do not expect things. It's more altruistic, is what I feel, rather than a person who is trying to please people.
Oh God, I feel like a manipulator now, just one day that you put it that ways. But what I also feel, and what is I tried to study my own self and my patterns and trying to improvise that. I also realized that somewhere people pleasing is more of a coping mechanism, because you are constantly, like you said, that you are seeking acceptance and love from the environment around you. And possibly it comes somewhere from things that have been missing during your early adulthood or childhood days. For instance, if someone comes from an abusive environment, and child who comes from an abusive environment, and not necessarily that the child would be the victim there, but when you come from a very, very emotionally uncomfortable environment, what usually happens, as a stress response, which kind of becomes a behavioral pattern, is that you want to do something to keep the abuser happy, so that you do not become the victim next. And I think possibly that it's like you're constantly walking on eggshells. So do you think that all these things are somewhere also, the reasons why we become people pleasers?
Yes, Sheetal. So I would say, like, trauma plays a very important role in terms of any developmental conditions. I would say trauma plays an important role. Imagine you being neglected by a parent. Okay, a child being neglected by a parent when he was like 7 or 8 years. The child will want all by he will try all possible means just to make the parent feel so good, and he will try to please the parent. Now if you ask me, is the pet child doing it with all his heart? I would say no. He's just doing it so that he can get all the attention, or all that he didn't get, or all that he was lacking when he was a child. So as you rightly said, trauma or the environmental conditions that a child is being raised in, not just a child, let's consider an adult, right? You are in an environment where you don't feel comfortable, you feel your emotions are not being given justice. You tend to do things which are completely opposite or contrast to your personality, and then you realize, what am I doing? Like, why am I doing it? And when you question these things to yourself, you understand, oh, I'm doing it because I want to make that person feel good. I want to have a different impression in front of that person. So people pleasing, yes, has a very direct connection with your childhood experiences, your adolescence experiences. You imagine, Sheetal, I'll give you one example. The trust issues in couples nowadays. Why do you think there are these trust issues in couples?
Possibly there is, because there is a lack of understanding, putting each other's in the other one's shoes, and also a lot of again, like I'd say that they both come from their own traumatic or not the perfect childhood maybe, but there is a lack of understanding when you come together,
Yes,
and a lack of self work maybe.
yes, completely. You're completely right, Cheetal. So all of us are carrying some baggage. And when we are carrying this baggage into a relationship, it becomes so difficult to actually work smoothly if we are just trying to prove each other. The people pleasers are only trying to prove the other person that they are good, or they they spend most of their time to chase how to make others happy than thinking about themselves. So you rightly said that childhood experiences, trauma, or even to certain extent abuse is a very important factor in a person becoming a people pleaser.
And also, just one thing, I think that, it wasn't bad in a way, at that point in time when you were a child, or a young adult, because it was at that point in time, it was necessary for you to survive. And the only way that you could have survived is by finding a middle ground with the person who was causing that abuse or otherwise, so it helped you keep yourself safe in that situation. But I think that as and when you kind of grow older, it is extremely important for you to look back at your past and the impact that it had on you as a person, on your behavioral patterns, and rework and kind of realign yourself
Mhm.
again. It's almost like reparenting yourself, and this is a term which is used very very often these days. But almost like reparenting yourself and ensuring that you become a better version of yourself, what you were possibly in the past.
Sheetal, that's right. I would say reparenting, yes, and rewiring to certain extent. You need to sit down and understand, okay, that was a past, and this was my behavior during the past. So when we actually, when a psychologist talks to a teenager or an adolescent, there are so many, as I said, there are so many experiences that he had when he was a child. Now, if he carries the same thing ahead into his adulthood, matching the conditions and situations in adulthood will be so difficult. Yes, as you said, initially it was right, or it was not as uh, like it was not as bad as it should have been right now. But I would say, Sheetal, as we change, as we grow, as we develop into an adult, changing our behavioral patterns also become equally important, because we are working and we are talking and interacting with so many different people. So if we are people pleasers, I feel we get lost in the crowd, and that is which where we come to acceptance, self acceptance.
So, Jaswanti, if I talk about my own self, and at that point when I was a people pleaser, like I said, that, I was very resentful of the other person because I saw that person as someone who was trying to overpower me. But at the same time, it made me feel like, literally a doormat. Like people can walk all over me and my plans, and no one will respect it. And I thought that I was doing it out of obligation, but in all honesty, it was all about me and the way I was, behaving a certain way with a certain person, and therefore inviting a certain kind of reaction from that person. And to be very honest, it crumbles your self esteem a lot, and it constantly keeps you full of resentment. So this is about me as a people pleaser. Okay, what is the kind of impression you think that a people pleaser gives to the other person?
So when a person who's, as you said, who is not a people pleaser, looks at a person who's a people pleaser, he feels, oh, he does not have control over things that he is doing. You know, it, as you said, you become a doormat. Rather than that, I would say, the person, for example, A person is the one who is a people pleaser, B person is the one who is not a people pleaser. The B person will try his 100% to actually take control of the situation, when actually the driving force was the person A. It is more like you are taking the control of everything. So the person B, obviously, because the person A is trying to please him, he will try to take all of the control. And that's where you rightly said that your self-esteem, you start questioning, am I doing what I should be doing? Is this right? And that's where you go into self-doubt as well, Sheetal. At times I feel the person goes into self-doubt to think, oh, am I worth doing this?
Just one thing, in your professional career, have you come across someone who was a people pleaser who changed, and how it completely changed his or her or their life completely, professionally as well as personally?
Yes, so Sheetal, as I said, when we talk about clinical experience, yes, there are so many people, who come with this thing that I'm having a burnout. I'm feeling so stressed. I feel lack of energy. At times, Sheetal, this is not the physical energy. It is just that you're carrying this mask of pleasing people that you actually feel so drained within. There was one person who used to come to me saying this thing like for over a week or so, where she used to come and say, okay, I feel very drained, I feel very lethargic when I'm doing anything. And that's when we started digging deeper and deeper into it. That's when she shared that, you know what, it is what my immediate reporting manager tells me. I tried to meet up to her expectations and cross that expectations. So she was not having expectations, or she was not having her things said. She was, as you rightly said in your example, you were doing things for her rather than doing things for you, right? And you always felt that she was the one who is controlling. On the other hand, the client is the one who is giving all the control in her hand. So she was actually trying to please her. That's when we sat down. We like she did a lot of exercises and self awareness, self esteem, and we started understanding how can we actually get into the main aspect of taking control over things that are actually in your control and not giving it to someone else. So yes, there are people who come up with concerns which are not clearly directing towards that them as they are people pleasers, but yes, they indirectly show some signs of how the person can get into people pleaser, leading to a lot of effects.
Also, just one thing, now that you've brought this subject up, shared this experience of yours, I remember my own experience, and this was much after I realized that I was people pleaser and I started doing a lot of self work. I realized that I was doing a job, and it was in a big media company, and I was working very closely with the chairman and managing director, who was a big shot, and no one would tell him the truth. So he was always surrounded by people who were yes men, who would just try to
Mhm.
please him all the time. But here I was, it was very different, and I would give him a very honest opinion. Now, I used to have all my peers coming to me and saying that, "Arey, aren't you scared? What would this person think? And he can fire you tomorrow." And I would be like, at least I need to be honest with this person and tell this person where we are going wrong, because this criticism or this honest opinion of mine, and not, the want to please him, would actually kind of lead to a better version of whatever we were creating,
Mhm.
right? And you won't believe me, Jaswandi, that there were a lot of people who got fired because, despite being yes men, but I was the person who became extremely close to this, chairman and CEO, and he was the one who would always seek my advice because I was extremely honest and I was not trying to please him all the time. So I think that is another example, and it just struck me while you were talking about, this, case of yours, that actually it kind of helps and it empowers you, and you are not scared anymore. I remember when I compare these two instances that I'm talking about, when I was a people pleaser, I was constantly scared about what this person would think about me, how this person would react to my certain decision. But here I was, years later, when I did a lot of self work and realized that I was a people pleaser and I wanted to stop being a people pleaser, I realized that it was extremely liberating. I wasn't scared anymore. And the fact that I wasn't scared anymore, I could be more honest, I could be more truthful, I could keep things in front of a person as it is, a little more tactfully, of course, but ensuring that we got into a more positive discussion. And that helped me grow much more professionally as compared to how things were earlier.
So true, Sheetal. I would say not just professionally, even if we consider your example here, since you were more truthful and honest with what you felt, you knew exactly what you wanted, what matters to you. It didn't matter to you that what this person might be thinking about you. What mattered is that the work or the project that has been assigned needs to move ahead. And the main goal was to work on the project and not please that person. So you rightly said that it has helped you to actually work or grow as a professional. I would say it really helps to grow personally as well, because you find your own self while you work on yourself, you get to know who you are, what matters to you, and a lot of other things as well.
Okay, so if Jaswanti, if you have to give some tips or
Mhm.
some steps to all the people who are people pleaser and how to not be a people pleaser, just tell us about those three steps and how to go about it.
Sheetal, I would say there are no specific steps, but I always talk about these three steps, which are very important and which help you to actually go to self acceptance, which, according to me, is the most important. So the first and the most important thing is to actually sit down and introspect about what matters to you, who you are, what what is that really matters to you, what is that you really wish to work on. So when you actually, as you rightly said, right, Sheetal, that in your project you knew you wanted to work in the project and not please this person or make this person feel good. So you know what matters to you. The second and the most important, but a bit tricky, I would say, many people are not able to do this, including me. I would say I'm learning it hard way. Learn to say no. If you have been watching a lot of movies and series nowadays, they have been imprinting this so much that there is a need to say no. You need to set boundaries. You need to know what are you okay doing and what do you want to say no to, because at times people pleasers find it difficult to say no, Sheetal. It is because they want to keep doing everything you say. And why? Because they want to please them. So it becomes a vicious cycle. Once you break this by saying no, it is very much easier to work on being your true self rather than pleasing people. And last but not the least, at this point in this era, I feel the most important is to start practicing self love. For the first step was to understand yourself. The second step was to actually embrace yourself. The third step is actually to love yourself. Spend as much time as you can to actually care about yourself, to love yourself, to give that time to yourself rather than giving time to people and giving pleasing people, sitting down to please people. Think about how you can pamper yourself, not just pampering by buying things, but also loving what you are doing. And I would say, Sheetal, these are the three steps that everyone should give it a try, because yes, this can surely help to a certain extent to overcome this trait of being a people pleaser.
Now, seriously, thank you so much, Jaswanti, for these three steps. These are things that I have been following, and I'm sure that a lot of people would follow that just to liberate themselves and to feel much, much more lighter, much more honest, and become professionally more successful as well. And yes, saying a no and the art of saying no is something that would be discussed in our next podcast for sure, because that is very, very important. And as you rightly said, that we are learning this as well every day. So we will wrap this episode up. Thank you so much, Jaswanti, for all your interesting inputs about topic of people pleasers. And we will be back next time again with a very interesting topic, the art of saying no.